Our goal for all students is to exit high school and become functioning members of society. That is why transition planning is so important, but especially for our students with complex needs. Many parents of students with special needs report feeling overwhelmed and scared when they think about their child's life after high school. There are 17 special education indicators the district must report out to the state, and the state reports to the federal government to show compliance with IDEA. Indicator 14 is data collected with the Youth 1 Year Out survey in Kentucky to show how many of our students are engaged in either higher education or employment after they leave high school. In 2020 2021, 84.7% of our students that left school with an alternative high school diploma were unengaged 1 year after leaving high school. This means many of our students are leaving high school and becoming isolated in their homes. Having and keeping a job fulfills three basic human needs: survival, social connection, and self determination or well being. Individuals with disabilities that have obtained and retained jobs have an increased sense of self esteem, self worth, friendships, and increased physical and mental health. Individuals with disabilities tend to suffer greater social isolation, stigma, and financial burdens than non-disabled workers, which makes having a job especially important for this population and makes the transition section of the IEP especially important for our students. For students in the 8th grade or age 14 or older, must be invited to the meeting where transition services are discussed. If the student does not attend the ARC meeting, the ARC chair must ensure that the student's preferences and interests are considered and documented in the conference summary. There is documentation that age-appropriate transition assessments were used to provide information on the student's needs, strengths, preferences, interests regarding each post-secondary goal. Typically, this is done through the ILP. Transition needs must be described in the present level section. There must be a minimum of one area: instruction, related service, community experience, development of employment, and other post-secondary adult living objectives, and if appropriate, acquisition of daily living skills and provisions of functional vocational evaluation. It must align with the student's individual education plan. If an agency was invited to the meeting, make sure that your ARC chair has gotten prior written permission from the parent or guardian. Furthermore, outside agencies do not include the parent or the student. Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, or OVR, is the agency most likely to be invited to and attend an IEP meeting. So let's talk about the multi-year course of study. The student has the multi-year course of study that is needed in order for them to reach their post-secondary goals. Multi-year means a minimum from the current school year to the student's expected year of exiting high school, including grade 14 for students staying until they're 21. The student's multi-year course of study must be in alignment with the student's IOP as required by the Kentucky Administrative Regulations, or KARs. Discussion of the review of the student's multi-year course of study must be documented in the conference summary. Course names must be included on the multi-year course of studies. And we don't use titles like elective. We need to say what the elective is so that it is clear that the student's working towards their post-secondary goal. For students in the 8th grade or age 14 or beyond, we have to discuss transition needs. So you'll notice that the box "not an area of concern at this time" is unchecked on this IEP. There needs to be a transition strength statement, transition needs, transition assessment data, which could be part of their performance data in another part of the IEP, and an adverse effect statement. By the time a student turns 16 years old, post-secondary goals and transition services must be addressed. Therefore, baseline data may be gathered through transition assessment data. Any of the areas of needs selected in the orange needs to be addressed in the transition present level. Post-secondary goals should address instruction, employment, and daily living skills where appropriate. So in writing the transition present levels, data should support each of the post-secondary goals. For example, if a student has a post-secondary goal that they want to receive on-the-job training to work at a clothing store, what data do you have to identify areas in which the student will need support? You may know that the student can match colors, numbers, and letters with 50% accuracy. Therefore, a math or reading goal should support the skills they will need in order to restock clothing, including matching sizes, colors, and clothing types. Here's an example of Charlie's present level of performance for transition. Notice it talks about his multi-year course of study, his current curriculum and transition activities, daily living skills, instruction, employment, and transition evaluations. Often we are doing a lot of transition activities for students with MSD. We need to make sure we're documenting our efforts here. Think about the most ambitious occupation that a student has said they want to be. If a student chooses an occupation from their interest inventory that is unattainable or unreasonable, is it okay to write a post-secondary goal so that the student's dreams are not crushed? The District of Columbia made a costly mistake when it developed post-secondary transition goals for a teenager with an emotional disturbance based solely on a 10-minute interest inventory. Determining that goals were not reasonable, realistic, or attainable, the IHO found that the district's failure to develop an appropriate transition plan entitled the students to compensatory services. So you should probe with guiding questions. If a student that is working towards an alternative high school diploma says they want to be a roller coaster engineer, what jobs could you recommend that will still give them the experience of working in an amusement park? Post-secondary or transition goals in the IEP follow a particular format. They should be measurable and are intended to happen after high school. Here's an example of a post-secondary goal for a student that wanted to work at the Yum Center as a ticket taker. After high school, James's goal is to receive on-the-job training at the Yum Center to be able to become a ticket taker. If you've noticed in your guided notes, there are also some other independent living goals for James that will help him achieve this goal. One of those is after high school, James's goal is to receive TARC bus training to be able to successfully ride the TARC bus from home to the Yum Center and from the Yum Center to home. When writing a post-secondary goal, remember we are working towards competitive integrated employment, and goals and objectives throughout the IEP should be related to the goal. For example, in James's goal, his reading goal may address being able to read a map, match text, or understand community safety signs. This directly aligns with his post-secondary goal of riding the bus to the Yum Center in order to be a ticket taker.